Welcome to the Gita in Action podcast. My name's Radha, and I'm here with our family of seekers, which is growing and expanding, and we are excited. We have some new additions this morning, so welcome. We're very happy to have you. And we are reading through the Bhagavad Gita verse by verse and talking about its relevance to our lives. And in the process, our hearts are really being transformed here together in the association of like-minded souls. And that's important because we can't do it alone. You know, no matter how strong we are, no matter how smart we are, no matter how disciplined we are, we need community. We need community because life gets us down. Life is just a constant battle of ups and downs. And we need community to pull us up when we're down. And we need to be there for others to pull up when we're up. So we're happy to all be here together, and happy Monday, everyone. So today we are starting in chapter 11. We're in chapter 11. We've been at this for almost 2 years now. I think August will be our 2-year anniversary here together. So we're starting in chapter 11, and we'll start with text 33 today, chapter 11, text 33. And we just have one verse for today. So we have a lot, and we have a lot to unpack with this verse. And when I was studying for this verse, I could not stop studying. It was just so relevant, and I was holding on to every word. So I hope you guys feel the same as we start discussing it. But before we do that, should we start with our prayers? Shraddhanjali, do you want to say our prayers today?
I can.
Is that okay?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Om Jnana Timirandasya Jana Jana Salakaya Chakshuran Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namane Vanchakopa Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyeva cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhaktavrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Srila Bhaktivedanta Swami Ki Jai.
Jai. Thank you. Thank you. So let's start with our verse today. Let me share my screen. 1133 is where we're starting. And if you'd like to do the Sanskrit and the translation today, Stella, that would be great.
Tasmatvam utista yaso labhasva jitva satrun bunksva rajyam samdam mayadvete nihataha purvameva nimitta matram bhava savya sachin. Therefore get up, prepare to fight and win glory. Conquer your enemies and enjoy a flourishing kingdom. They are already put to death by my arrangement. And you, O Savyat-achi, can be but an instrument in the fight.
Thank you. Okay, so when we're stepping into this next moment of the Gita here, at this point, Arjuna has just seen something very overwhelming. Right? He saw the universal form. He saw time, destruction, everything unfolding at once, and it's a lot. We saw that. It's humbling. It's a little terrifying. And so then after Krishna reveals this whole vision to Arjuna, he says, get up and fight. We just read this. He says, get up and fight. But not in the way we might think, because what Krishna is about to explain here isn't just about a battle on a field. It is, but it's about something much deeper. It's about how life is moving, and what our roles are in it, and what it really means to act with purpose without carrying the weight of everything on our shoulders. So it's like a new way to live and do our duties, and in a way that connects us and uplifts us and frees us. So in this one verse, we're gonna explore a few really powerful themes today. And the first one we'll talk about is how real enjoyment and purpose fit into spiritual life. We'll talk about what it means that things are already arranged. And we'll talk about what it looks like to be an instrument. So these are three really relevant themes for us today. And this is where Arjuna and us, as we're on this journey with Arjuna, will start to shift, from confusion to clarity. This is where he's getting now, to action. This is Arjuna's journey, but it's really all of our journeys as well. So this verse, what Krishna is saying here, he's telling Arjuna in this verse, he says, this is already going to happen. Okay, the outcome is set. Now you rise and play your part. And we'll talk about that exactly in a little bit. But first, let's zoom in on this part where Krishna tells him to enjoy. I want to just kind of zoom in on this part where Krishna says enjoy. Because sometimes we hear that spiritual life means no enjoyment. Right? It's just service. And in that way, it can be a little bit like bleak, like, I don't want to be associated with those people, like don't enjoy life, right? But this isn't actually the full picture. Because yes, we serve, but there's a deep enjoyment within that service. In fact, Krishna doesn't want us to live deprived lives. He wants us to experience real enjoyment, the kind that comes from our spiritual nature, from being connected to him. Okay, this is like the highest enjoyment. Because the truth is, when we're chasing enjoyment at the material level, through just enjoying our senses, whether it be our gross senses or our subtle senses, our enjoyment in our mind, like our attachment to prestige, admiration, when we're chasing that kind of level of enjoyment, we actually end up missing out on something deeper. So there's still a level of enjoyment there, sure, but it's limited, and it doesn't fully satisfy us. Because if it did, it wouldn't leave us craving more and more and more. When you think about some of the material things that you enjoy the most, again, you can think gross things, like things you enjoy with your senses, food, any kind of substance, or pleasant experience, or subtle things, okay, admiration, power, pride, prestige, these kinds of things. When you think about that kind of enjoyment you get from them, it's like there's something missing. It's not like totally fulfilling, because you just kind of get attached, and then you're just like constantly wanting more and more and more. It's like insatiable. That's the nature of material enjoyment. So spiritual practice, regulation, discipline, all of these things, it's not meant to restrict us for the sake of restriction. It's meant to like free us from lower forms of enjoyment so that we can experience something higher. because as long as we're like living in this plane, in this realm of just chasing material enjoyments, we can't really get free enough to pursue something higher. We're just like too fixated, too like infatuated on this plane of material enjoyment, because that's the nature of them. It's like it's quite addicting. Like you're never going to be powerful enough. You're never going to have enough fans or followers. You're never going to eat enough chocolate cake or your drug of choice. And it like shackles you to material existence. So that's why we have regulation and discipline in spiritual life for these things, so that we can become a little bit free from these shackles to pursue higher levels of enjoyment, more refined levels of enjoyment. And we don't have to wait until we're in the spiritual world to have this. We can experience this level of enjoyment, this level of fulfillment here, right? through service, when we do our duty for Krishna. And these things, when we do this, we've talked about this before, like if somebody builds a temple or does some kind of big service project, not for themselves but for Krishna, and for others. Externally it might look like a material activity, but internally there's deep fulfillment. The joy isn't material, it's spiritual. I just did a program last night. I partnered with this organization called T-Told. They plan events for people to help people maintain sobriety. And we did a program there. We talked about the soul. We talked about our temporary identities. We did a beautiful sound bath. I gave every single person there was like 20 people there. I gave them all foot massages. It was very sweet. And I was thinking like, wow, this is how I spend my Saturday night now. It's like I don't get paid. It's like, but I look forward to it. It like completely fills me up to where it's like, I'm not even like, I have so much energy because I'm so like inspired, and this is, so on the outside, it looks like just, I'm partnering with this organization. We're doing this event, but on the inside, it's very spiritual what's happening here. It's very spiritual, and that is so fulfilling. It's so fulfilling. And so here Krishna's telling Arjuna, you're going to win, you're going to rule. And yes, you can enjoy that, but understand it's all by my arrangement. So here we're changing the ways that we relate to things, and it liberates us. It liberates us. And in that liberation, it allows us to enjoy at a much higher, more refined level. So now this raises a question, because Krishna is saying that everything is already arranged, which can be kind of like, okay, then what's the point of even doing anything if everything's already arranged? Like the whole battle's already decided. But what Krishna's trying to do here is help Arjuna to transform his consciousness. This isn't necessarily about fixing the external outcome. It's about fixing Arjuna's consciousness, which is actually the entire purpose of the Gita. And the entire purpose of what we're doing here in this material existence is to transform our consciousness. Because ultimately, to win the battle, Krishna doesn't need Arjuna. He can do whatever he wants. He could transform everybody in a second. As a super soul in the heart, he can move everything. But he involves Arjuna because he's concerned with our inner transformation. He wants to bring Arjuna and us to a place of devotion where we become purified and elevated and ultimately liberated. So this is the process, and this is what we're learning through Arjuna's process. So when Krishna says, be an instrument, it can feel a little bit uncomfortable at first, right? So he says that in this verse, be an instrument. And for some of us, it's like, wait, I'm my own person, right? Like anybody have like a complete resistance to surrender? Like, I'm not interested in being an instrument. I'm my own person. And I just don't want to like be this dogmatic, like just, you know, person vessel to just be controlled. But the reality is our intelligence is limited. No matter how smart you are, no matter how many degrees you have, how successful you are at your material endeavors, you're still limited. And if you haven't come up against this in your life yet, you will. When we try to control things or fix things, or figure everything out, oftentimes what happens is we just things just get more messy. It's just things get more complicated. We see this in things like the environment. It's like sometimes the best things that people can do for the environment is to just stop messing with it. Just stop interfering so much. It's like nature already has its own intelligence to restore balance. It's like we are so finite. So similarly, when we can start aligning with Krishna's plan, it's not that we're losing ourselves. We're actually plugging into something far greater. And this is how we're designed, what we're intended for. It's like our finite small intelligence gets connected to Krishna's unlimited intelligence. And then what happens is we're able to do things that we just never could do on our own. And I mean, this just makes sense. Again, when the finite connects with the unlimited, with the infinite, then we're just like, I mean, we're supercharged. We're like turbocharged. And it doesn't mean that we dismiss our own abilities, and Krishna doesn't do that here with Arjuna either. He acknowledges, actually, in this verse, he acknowledges this through Sanskrit words, so we may have just slightly missed it, but he acknowledges Arjuna's skill. Arjuna's this incredible archer. He's so skilled. He can shoot in the darkness, and Krishna says a word in this verse that he can shoot with both hands. What's that word? Ambidextrous. I think that's like the English word for it. And so he acknowledges, like, he's very skillful. So we keep our skills, very skillful. But and becoming an instrument, it doesn't mean that like your talents don't matter, that you're just like a wallflower, right? Or just like a dull piece of matter. No, your talents actually find their highest expression when they're used in service. Again, this is like the rightful arrangement. We have these gifts so we can offer them back to the one who gave us these gifts, to the source of these gifts, whom these gifts actually originate and really belong to. And when we do that, we just get carried away by the flow of Krishna's grace. And our life just starts to kind of arrange without us so much gripping so hard. It's really quite beautiful. So whatever you are, whether you're a speaker, a manager, a musician, whatever you are, they don't go away in spiritual life. They actually become perfected. They become refined and perfected. Like, when we talk about, we oftentimes we're our own biggest limitations, right? Our biggest limitations come from ourselves. They like block our ability to really step into our full potential. And what that really means is they block our connection with God, because once that's free and we can really plug into source, we have like unlimited capacity and like shakti, like energy that flows through. And those gifts can really be optimized and used in their full potential. Which contrasts, with modern self-development, which is a lot of like believe in yourself, confidence comes from within, like be your own teacher, your mindset creates your reality, like all these things, which are true to some extent, and they work. And it's definitely better than like, kind of dwelling in this, like just like seeping in like this mood of self-deprecation and, the other side of the coin where it's like, I can't do anything. I'm not good enough. I'm just going to sit and wallow. right? So it's definitely like a step up, but it's still limited. It's still limited. It's because this kind of confidence, when it's only rooted in ourselves, by definition, it's still limited because we're limited. And if you think you're not, life will teach you, which is a beautiful thing about life. No matter how strong you are, how powerful you are, you're still limited. Life will humble you. You'll hit situations that remind you, oh, wow, I actually don't have the control I thought I did. I actually don't have all that power I thought I did. Even if you're the most powerful person in the world, you will become humbled. And when this happens to you, don't take it to mean something like, I'm not good enough, or I am not as strong as I should be. Or no, we should see this as an invitation. Don't go deeper into the ego when these things happen. See it as an invitation to step out of the ego. Right? Because this is what's happening here with Arjuna. Right? His understanding is deepening. He's seeing the universal form. He's seeing everything, past, present, future. He's seeing it is all resting within Krishna. Nothing's moving independently. He's seeing there's this higher order, this higher intelligence, this divine plan that's unfolding. Right? And the question becomes here, does this make him uncomfortable? Right? Or is this reassuring to kind of see this? Does it feel limiting that he sees all of this, or is it empowering? And the answer, which side you fall on that spectrum, really depends on how you see yourself in relation to Krishna. So for Arjuna, his confidence actually becomes stronger, because now it's not based on him alone. It's based on the understanding that when we align with Krishna, there's this divine backing behind him. And this is where real confidence comes from. Any other confidence is going to have limitations. The most confident person if their confidence isn't coming from a place that's connected to source, it's going to be temporary, just like any other material energy. They're going to come up against a block at some point. This is just fact, because we're finite. Real confidence comes from connection with that which is infinite. Not from ego, not from hype, not from convincing ourselves that we're amazing. That can maybe pull us up out of a pretty low hole, and that can serve a purpose in our lives. I know it definitely has for me. There's a time we kind of have to pick ourselves up from the floor and have a little bit of confidence in ourselves. But hopefully, after we kind of pick ourselves up and dust ourselves off a little bit, we get the intelligence that we need to plug into source. Because this is where real confidence comes from. Not from ego, but from humility. Okay, from recognizing I'll do my part, I'll show up fully, right? But I'm not in this alone. I'm just playing a role. Right? But I'm doing it on a stage that's being directed by something far greater. And when we start to understand that, something powerful happens. We become quietly confident, steady, grounded. So we're not like proud, like one side of the coin. Then we're not insecure, the other side of the ego coin, which is ultimately the same coin. It's all ego. Right? But we just become clear. You just become clear. And it's very sweet. I experienced this firsthand in this service that I've been doing different programs and retreats. And I know, like, on my own, I would have never been able to do some of these things. Like, when I think about who I was before spiritual life, just like so insecure, so like, had to control every single little thing, and was so terrified of the outcome if I didn't have control over it. It's like that in itself was just limiting. But in spiritual life, it's like a whole different way of being. It's like you just try your best and you don't make it about you. You don't make the outcome about you. You don't make the way things happen about you. You just try your best. You play your role. And then you sit back and watch, understanding that God's actually the great like producer of the show. And we're just an actor. Right? So becoming an instrument, it's not about becoming less. It's about becoming connected. It's about letting go of the pressure to control everything and stepping into a space where we're supported, we're guided, we're empowered. And it's from that place that we can do far more than we ever could on our own. We see this in this example in Prabhupada, who came over here to give us all of this wisdom. He came over from India. He had nothing. He had hardly any money. He had no following. He had terrible health. Well, terrible. He suffered some health. He had some health struggles, right? So he had no like big plan. From an external perspective, like it made no sense. But what he did have, like his superpower, his secret weapon, was he had this unshakable faith in Krishna. He had this unshakable faith in God. And he genuinely saw himself as an instrument. And it was because of that he was able to do something extraordinary. He was able to spread this movement all over the world. Not because he was trying to prove himself, not because he was operating from ego, not because, any other self-centered reason, but because he was deeply aligned and deeply dependent. And he never took credit for anything he did because he didn't even believe that at his core. He genuinely saw himself as an instrument, and he always pointed back to Krishna's grace. Right? So what we see here, that there's a divine plan. And our perfection isn't to control this plan, but to understand it and cooperate with it. And some of you sitting here today might think, okay, well, that's great for Arjuna. He had Krishna directing him on the battlefield. Like, how do I know what Krishna's plan is for me? So the guidance here is focus on the big things first, which is your connection with God. And through that, God will reveal. Krishna will reveal. So our connection with God, we have great tools in this practice. This is one of the reasons I'm so attracted to this practice, is because the great tools we have for connection with God. It is not just theoretical, it's practical, it's experiential. We have a sadhana. We chant God's names. We come together, we study scripture. We serve where we can. This process, this process of sadhana, right? Chanting, studying scripture, serving where we can, associating with like-minded people, right? When we show Krishna that we're sincere, that this is what we really want. We really want connection with him, and we do this. We show Krishna this through spending our time, our energy on these things. When we do this, he begins to guide us from within. And it's not always like in a loud, obvious way, but gradually, clearly, you'll experience this. Like you'll experience more clarity. It's like if you feel like your tires are just spinning in the sand, like when you really plug into these practices, you'll see over time, like, oh, I don't have to just like, hit the gas so hard. So like just gripping, I can kind of let up, and somehow or other, the way out becomes clear. We don't have to get stuck in overthinking, like paralysis analysis. That happens to us. That's what happens when we try to like be God. Like, oh, I can figure this out. I know. It's like at some point, it's like, wait, just stop. Just plug in. Just plug into God, and then just be patient. It will be revealed. Just do what you can in the moment, whatever you can do in the moment. Maybe a little bit more chanting, maybe a little bit of service that presents itself in front of you. Take those opportunities. Maybe instead of sitting on a couch watching Netflix all night, you go to a program or a kirtan. Just take whatever opportunity you can that's in front of you sincerely. And the more we do that, the more we make those decisions, the more we step closer to God, the more clarity will come. And this is liberating, because it's like we don't have to do it on our own. We're not intended to do it on our own. We're not designed to do it on our own. And sometimes thinking that we can and we should and we want to is like our biggest demise. It is. It's our biggest demise. I mean, that's like, that should be like a flashing red warning light that, like, hey, it's time to stop and rethink the mode that you're running in, because it's going to hurt you soon. You're going to come up against something that's you're not going to be able to drive through. Yeah. Sorry, Stella, I just saw your hand up. Can you share with us, please?
Yeah, we were just thinking of when you have some talent or skill, like I saw that in my work as a librarian and teaching information literacy in a classroom, that you I knew what to teach. I knew it backwards and forwards. But I over time, when I walked into the classroom, like, oh, I know this stuff. It's gonna go over great. I'm just gonna, this will, and I just go in with all just me knowing this stuff. I often had the worst class ever. The lesson didn't go well. No, it was all. I, I, but when I went in with Krishna knows what is going to be the result, and I give the result to him. Like, when I consciously walked in, looked at everybody as a child of God and said, Krishna, let them learn what you want them to learn today. I'm just going to present it, but the result is up to you. Whether the timing goes right or the particular activity goes right or not, everybody's going to get whatever you want them to get, from what I have to offer. And then the class went great. So, and that happened like every time I was aware of that, I saw it happen again and again. That if I went in without wanting a result, giving the result to Krishna, it just went better. I knew what I was doing, so I just did it. But I I don't know, there was something very freeing about that. Like you said, like not having to letting Krishna dictate the result, and not needing to know what each kid took away, um, freed me up kind of to be a little more relaxed, and I did a better job with the skills I had. They were my skills, but and do you want to? Yeah. So anyway, that was just that came up in my mind when you were talking.
Yeah, that's beautiful and perfect, and such a testament to, like, yeah, that's because that's the way that we're designed. When we're not acting or doing things in congruent with the way that we're designed, we're just not going to be as effective. The result is just not going to be as effective. But when we operate in the way that we're designed, we plug into source, so the result is so much more effective. Just like any other, I'm an engineer, so I really think in these kinds of terms. Like, the Gita is a guidebook that tells us, okay, this is the way that, this is your mind, this is your body, this is how they work together, this is source, this is your connection with source, this is material energy. Do with it what you want. But if you really want to optimize the system, this is how to put everything together and to relate together for ultimate transformation and upliftment and fulfillment of heart. And ultimately, that's what we're all looking for here, right? In this world, is fulfillment of heart. Everything we do, we're just trying to fill our heart up. Whether we're trying to be beautiful, we're trying to find a mate, we're trying to be successful. It all just comes down to this desire to be loved and to give love. But the Gita tells us how to do that so clearly. We don't have to make it all about ourselves, and to the degree that we do, it actually shrinks us. we become smaller. Yeah, so to step into our power, we have to understand that it's actually Krishna's power, and we are just instruments for it. And I love what you said. It's freeing when we do that. Our whole mental space just frees up. I had the very same experience, Shraddhanjali. When I first started like doing retreats, it was like I would obsess over it. It was anxious. It was just like a mess. So much so that I was like, I can only do this every once in a while. You know, it's just it's gripping so tight. But then to let go and say, I really have no idea how this is going to go. I'm going to give it my best and offer the result to Krishna, and hopefully, however it ends up, it will bring me closer to God. And then, just like you said, yes, somehow Krishna just arranges. It's magic. But if it were about our effort alone, then every time we worked really hard at something, we'd get great results, and we know that's not the case. You work super hard at something, and it's like, what's that saying? Like, work harder, like smarter, not harder. Right? Smarter is connecting to God, getting into that flow of things. That's the smartest you can work. Certainly don't work harder. That doesn't guarantee you anything. So this is the shift. The shift is it's not our mission, it's God's mission. We're just a part of it. And when we can take this shift, it stops feeling like, this is impossible. Where it's like, wow, this is unstoppable. Whatever it is, whether it's an external thing you're going for, or even just an internal shift. Understand that this is God's mission. If you're like in the crux of addiction or struggling with something personal in your life, the number one best thing you can do for yourself is stop making it about you. Stop making it about you. Stop getting stuck in the ego. The ego will keep you trapped. And this is the job of the ego. Step out of it. It's not about you. It never has been about you. This is Krishna's mission. And let us be an instrument for that. Because this is the only way to guarantee success. And success doesn't always mean that results are going to go the exact way that we think they should. But if we're sincere in our desire to surrender to God's plan, whatever the results are, they will bring us closer to God. Sometimes, it may not actually be successful, whatever it is that we're doing. And sometimes this is God protecting us, because sometimes success can make us proud, can pull us away from Him. So sometimes failure could be protection. Same thing with our internal struggles, lust, anger. It's like, why am I not overcoming this? Right? It's not that the process doesn't work. It's that Krishna's teaching us something deeper. And that is, again, that real victory doesn't come from our own effort. It comes from His grace. And when that realization becomes real, this is like when we really step out of our ego. We understand it doesn't come from our own effort. It's not about us. It never has been about us. It comes from His grace. When this realization becomes real, this is when we become humble. This is when we become dependent. This is like the beginning of our real spiritual life, or at least like a step up on our spiritual life. It's like a next level, like an upgrade. And this is when we really see that deeper transformation. What do you think, Nancy?
Thank you so much. I kept on thinking, thank you, Shraddhanjali, too, and your wisdom, that I might not be much, but it's all I ever think about. This idea that I and if I am not open and willing, because God speaks in all sorts of ways. Krishna speaks I'm not going to grow. If I think I know how how the lights are supposed to be arranged, how the dancers are supposed to be, however, I'm going to be constantly disappointed in life. And if indeed I act as an instrument, which also means I believe everyone else is an instrument, that in
Mm.
fact I sit back and I grow and change to say, oh, okay, me trying to maybe teach in a certain way or share in a certain way, if I'm not willing to listen and um, learn something from that experience, then I'm not growing. And I think that Krishna always wants me to grow. Doesn't
Mm.
want me to just be stagnant and I've arrived someplace. I think that there is maybe an ultimate arrival, but in this material body wants me to keep on changing and growing and sitting back and saying, well, yeah, could be. This everything that's happening could be. So thank you so much for letting me share. Thank you for the class. Hare Krishna.
That was so nice. Thank you, Nancy. Nancy is a very empowered person. Nancy is a recovery expert. She spent a lot of time in her own recovery and now helping others in their journeys. And if you ever need any guidance in that, is this okay that I say this, Nancy? Because I feel like this is what you do, right? Nancy is our person. Nancy is our person. So we appreciate Nancy. Thank you, Nancy. Because in this battle, in this journey, we may sometimes lose individual battles. Again, either internal or external. But we don't have to lose the fighting spirit, because our spiritual life, it's not defined by one win or loss. It's not like, oh, I succumbed to that drug of choice tonight and now everything's down the drain. It's defined by continuing to show up, right? To serve, to stay connected. And it's ultimately that consistency that leads to the highest success. We saw this in Prabhupada too. This, like, he had so many failures before, like so many battles that were losses. You hear about programs where nobody showed up. This happened, but he never lost the fighting spirit. And not because he was so great, because he was so strong, but because he had so much faith in God, so much faith in God's plan, and such a strong conviction that he was just an instrument in that. And that's what inspired him to keep trying, to keep serving. He never lost his fighting spirit. Right? This is a true spiritualist. This is a person with a true connection to God. And it's not false confidence. It's not like, I think I heard something where it's like, I think one time he said, like, the only thing standing between this and success is time. And that can sound like a very, like, egotistical statement. But when you just have this so much faith in God and God's plan and God's will and desire, it's actually such a statement of, like, dependency and trust. Because it's not a statement to saying I'm so great. It's a statement to saying he's so great. And I have complete faith. I'm completely surrendered to him. So one last powerful point, our success is often limited by our past karma. You can work hard, but your outcomes will still have limitations depending on your karma. Right? We all have a unique karmic package, and we can only move around so much in that karmic package. But the good news is, for persons who's connected to God, success isn't limited like that. Because Krishna can empower someone far beyond what karma would do. It's like when you plug into source and you're picked up by that current, it's like you're beyond, you've, like, your package has been ripped open, and it's now there's no boundaries. It's like you're all of a sudden your capacity becomes unlimited. So the real question becomes, how much are we willing to trust? How much are we willing to align, to serve? Because when we do that, even imperfectly, we open ourselves up to something far greater than we could just create on our own. And this is the magic. This is the Krishna magic. And for me, this is what makes like service kind of addicting. It's like it's just because it's just like it's a game. It's just like fun. It's just I'm just gonna try my hardest at that and see what happens. And I say it's a game in the sense that you don't have to tie yourself, your worth, your to the outcomes of things. It's just it makes everything lighter. It gives it like it just makes it again fun, because that's what kind of drags you down, makes you anxious, makes you depressed, makes you scared. Oh, but when that's all out the window, then you can really lean in. And all the while, what you're doing is building relationship with God. And that is the sweetest nectar. So it's more than a game. It's like just the sweetest game. Right? So if we zoom out and really take all of this in, what Krishna's really offering Arjuna here is assurance. Assurance. No pressure, not control, not you have to figure it out. Just reassurance that you don't have to carry the whole outcome. You don't have to control every result. You just have to show up and offer yourself sincerely. And this is for us to learn too. Again, where so much of our stress comes from feeling like everything depends on us, our decisions, our plans, our ability to make things work. This verse is inviting us into a different way of living. A way where we still act, we still care, we still give our best, but we do it in alignment, not in isolation. When we start asking, how can I serve right now? Instead of, how can I control everything? And then over time, this will change something inside of us. We'll become lighter, we'll become clear, we'll become more steady. And even when things don't go the way we expect, we don't lose our footing, because we're not like totally rooted in the outcomes anymore. We're rooted in connection. So whether we feel like we're winning or losing in different moments of life, we just keep going. We just keep showing up. We just keep serving. And it's in that consistency, in that sincerity, where the real success in spiritual life actually unfolds. And this will transform everything in your life. This will transform you from the inside out. This will transform your relationships. And then when you have relationships with people that are aligned with the same purpose, they just become cleaner. Your dealings become smoother because you're just so aligned on that purpose. I feel like I see Anuradha just came on. I feel that in my relationship with Anuradha, because we are like so aligned in our desire to serve and to serve sincerely, that like her and I can just talk with just like complete barriers down. Like it's like we don't have to make anything about her, about me. It's completely about the mission, what we're trying to do. And it's so freeing. It's freeing in the relationship. It feels very like it feels like we can grow together, and it feels like we can serve together very sincerely, and learn from each other without the tricks of the ego or the limitations of the ego. It's very sweet. It's very sweet. So this is the high. This is what Krishna wants for us. He wants that high for us. And this is the true fulfillment of the heart, not the cheap enjoyment that we search in the material world. Something so much sweeter. So that's the class for today. We have some reflections. Oh, I just see Gopa. Good to see you. Does anybody want to share any reflections today? There's a lot of different little topics in that one verse. There's so many different parts of the verse to zoom into and to really dissect together. But I would love to hear any of your takeaways or reflections. Anything that really resonated with you or that you related to in your own life in a way that was impactful. Erin.
Good morning. Hi, Krishna.
Hi, Krishna.
Thank you for the class. I think I oftentimes think like, I think we can all be really hard on ourselves and like our own worst critic. And, I just think like, oh, seva, like I don't really do much seva or like austerities, I'm like, I don't do any austerities. And, I think it's been a real journey for me to like, kind of accept for myself like what counts almost like no like showing up to this class is like service, right? And it's a beautiful and enjoyable service. And um just like fasting for Ekadashi, like that is an austerity. Like I've had to like really redefine because like on first glance I feel like I'm just like, well, I don't do that, or I don't do enough of it, or like it never feels like enough. So I was like thinking about that for a bit during the class, and then I just really appreciate and love what you said about fun, because I feel like, yeah, we can, when it's such a tricky balance because, you do want to do what you can do and like show up and like put in your best effort, but also not control, right? And I find that to be a really tricky balance. And I think remembering that, like, sometimes it's just like it's not so serious. Like at least like the pressure I put on myself or like the standards that like, are really self-imposed. It's like, I even find like some of my best days, even if it's mundane things like chores, and I can like stress myself out about like getting a ton of little things done. And when I just like let go a little bit, I find that like it all gets done. And like it can just happen, and it can happen without the like, jaw clenching, like stomach churning, like it must all happen right now, type of approach that is not helpful for anyone. But I really appreciate that reminder to focus on the fun because I think it's hugely important. And I think a lot of times, spiritual life is taken as like so serious, and we can forget that like, there is enjoyment too, or could be, should be.
Yes, exactly. Beautiful. Thank you so much. Martine.
Good morning. Thank you for the class. I was just reflecting, for those of us in retirement, those reflections maybe have a different dimension in the sense that the battles we, quote unquote, fight every day, or the perceived battles that we have to fight every day, are a completely different set than when you get up in the morning, you get dressed, you have to go to the office, you have to deal with office dynamics, you have to, deal with the company forecast, profit and loss, and, your potential bonus or whatever it is, whatever field you're in, you're an engineer. So, so in this context of that phase of life, I don't know, I speak for myself. I think by default you go inward, and that kind of take stock. And the battlefield is a very different battlefield, if you will, right? Of what was in the younger years, right? Where you were just trying to keep your head above water. And you had to shoot arrows in different directions, so it's an interesting set. I always wrestle, as you know me a little bit by now, but I always wrestle with the idea of I struggle with the word surrendering, but for the purpose of this input I'm putting there, for to not give in, but to accept that maybe it's set, and the freeing aspect of that realization. When I look at the world around and what's going on right now everywhere, it's hard for me to see the divine's hand in the atrocities that are being perpetrated. So I have to deal with myself, right? But how does one, go on the battlefield, so to speak, and stand up and show up and fight for, what we all need to fight for, our freedom of others, equal rights, civic rights that are being eroded, democracies in democratic institutions, So for me, how do we do that? We have to go inward and be able to have the strength, right? And then what causes do we choose? Because there's so many of them being thrown at us in order to kind of be one of so many thousands and millions of people who are trying to keep, the fact that we're able to converse here and have that platform, we should not accept that as a given. It could be taken away tomorrow, right? So, how do you reconciliate, if you will, our ability, each of us, to go within and kind of find that strength, and by the same token, stand up and stand for what the strengths we are and given from above, or whatever, our understanding, and be able to abide by those values. Because for me, when I see what's going on, it's really hard to accept that there is a divine hand in the atrocities that are being perpetrated everywhere. So it's a really hard thing for me to go in fully and say, okay, I'm going to put my blinders and I'm going to go in full speed, and then I will emerge like the lotus from that mud and arise, up, which is what we all try to do. But it's a really hard process that I struggle with, as you know. Maybe it's my Jewish being, that, constantly question everything. So I don't know if you have any.
Yeah.
That made sense.
Yeah. No, it makes total sense. And, there's a couple things that you said in that I just want to comment on quickly. One is our battlefield ultimately is always an internal battlefield, but it manifests externally differently at different times in our lives, depending on different circumstances. So that's big to realize in itself. You say you dealt with different things when you're younger, your battlefield was different than it is now. But if you really zoomed in, you'd probably see that it's actually the same. It's just manifesting differently externally, depending on the circumstance and the time in your life. But you're probably still dealing with a lot of the same internal things that you've been dealing with. So that's one thing. But the second point is that the Gita is not about passivity. It's not about just like tolerate everything going on and, find your internal strength and go sit in a cave and that's your internal strength. And it's not that at all. I mean, the whole thing that's happening, it's a battlefield, and Krishna's encouraging Arjuna to fight in the name of Dharma and to protect what's right and what's just and what's best for society. So it's absolutely, it's not in an aggressive sense, but he's absolutely has that kind of dharmic responsibility. And that's something for us to know. But if Arjuna can do it in a spirit of surrender to the divine plan, to surrender to God's will, and not out of his own ego, he becomes empowered and he becomes successful. And that's the difference, the way he relates with his dharma and his duty. Not that he quits doing his dharma. The whole point of the Gita is do your dharma, do your duty. And Arjuna was a warrior. I mean, he's the one protecting these other vulnerable people. You know, and Krishna's encouraging him to. But he's teaching him how to do it expertly. And that expertise doesn't come from his own self, his own skill, even though he's the most skillful in the world. That expertise comes from connecting with source and becoming empowered. And to do that requires a high level of surrender. But it's what he surrendered to. And that's the subtlety. That's the distinction. And that subtlety makes all of the difference, internally and externally. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so I'm also, as you were talking about that, I say, what about the, the amount of evil ego that is, that energy that is weighing on the world, on America, and on so many other areas, that extreme, that, how do you do the positive, side of when you, because we have to have ego to move forward. We can't move forward without any ego, because otherwise, we are vegetables. We have no way to exist, right? So how can we gather, that strength with humble egos, if I may use that kind of association of words, right? To
Yeah.
to kind of push away that weight of that, what seems to be, it's like that Icarus that keeps rolling up the rock at the mountain and then it rolls back down, right? And then
Yeah.
again.
I think I understand your question.
And so
And
how do we push away from a very humble and strong place, just like 80 years ago when, fascism was defeated, Nazism was defeated, only to rise again even stronger now. So, it's like those battles that are constantly re-emerging.
We still have to show up. We still have to do our duties. We still have to be fighters if that's our dharma, if our dharma is fighters. I'll give you an example. Last night we did this program. I did this program with Anuradha in Vrinde, and Anuradha did some things that I was like, Anuradha, that's not really the way we should do those things for what we're trying to do. And I was kind of like hard on her. I was a little bit hard on her. And her and I spoke afterwards, and I was like, I hope that, you weren't offended. And she's like, no, not at all. And it was like, because again, we are so aligned in what we're trying to do. She totally understood. We had the conversation. It was gone. It was like not even a thing, because it wasn't rooted in the ego. It was rooted in, let's do this the best that we can, with like also a level of acceptance of whatever happens is God's will. But let's work together to do this the best that we can. And in that, there was there was quite a fighting spirit. There was a lot of energy. There was a lot of like, let's do it. But at the same time, there wasn't a like hard attachment to it that's what really the ego gets caught in. It's like a subtle difference. The ego is not, somebody could be very strong, very, very bold, and have no ego. Because they're very strong, they're very bold in the name of service. So we can't just associate spiritualists with just like meek and quiet and humble and think that that's how we're supposed to be. It's not at all. Arjuna's a fighter. I mean, this is a fierce person, a skillful person. And Krishna's not saying, no, just don't do that. But, in the name of religion, in the name of spirituality, be soft. And no, he's saying be a fighter. But do it in service to me. And not in service to the ego. And there's just quite a difference there. And as you progress in your spiritual life, you'll see that more and more, even within yourself. You'll see that subtlety. And we have teachers like this. We all have teachers like this that can be kind of hard on us, but at the end of the day, you feel like they're really just loving you. That's the difference. Like that kind of hard chastisement but it's actually love, because they just really. Does this make sense?
Mm-hmm. I was thinking also, as we talk, all of a sudden I was thinking more of the feminine energy, right? What would be, Arjuna is identified as a male warrior. He's on the battlefield. He's fighting other males, and I think this is the era we are in, where we are, how do you call it, flooded with that male energy in the sense, and not the positive one that we know exists, right? But what if instead of of that on the battlefield would be, first of all, would women be on the battlefield to try to shoot arrows at each other? I don't know. It's not that all women are peaceful. They're not. And I think women are capable of making decisions that are very difficult, in government and so forth. So, I was just, as you were talking about that, we always talk about Krishna and Arjuna and so forth. We are representative of a male energy, even though we know Krishna is Radha and Krishna. But, what if that Radha, energy incarnation will be more powerful, and what would be the general environment of our lives personally and nations and worlds, if that will be a much more powerful energy right now. So it's an interesting thing that just popped into my head, at this moment. So
Yeah, no, thank you for sharing. I don't know that it's one energy is better than the other. I would say more, it's like just under whatever energy you have, understanding how to utilize it effectively, becoming expert at using it, which culturally we have no expertise at harnessing our energy. It's just, that's the real problem. That's epidemic. But oh my gosh, this has gone on. This is probably our longest one. I really appreciate this conversation, and let's continue to have beautiful discussions like this. And I'd love to speak more with you offline if you'd like to, Martine.
thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all. Thank you all for coming. Have a great day.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Krishna.